It is a protection of freedom,
I'm going to stop you for 1 second. We have live pictures coming in of Donald Trump's plane arriving in Cleveland. There you see, coming into town. He'll speak officially till tomorrow night, but Donald Trump arriving in Cleveland.
Daddy Force One.
You call it Daddy Force One?
I do. When I'm press secretary, I want Debonair Force One.
Milo Yiannopoulos.
Thanks very much.
It's been interesting. Thanks so much for joining us. All right, let's turn.
Well, and the brave man, Milo Yiannopoulos, is here with us now. Are we expected to feel sorry for men? Is that what this is?
I think it would have been ridiculous until really very recently for any man to make arguments like this. It's certainly ridiculous for anybody of even my generation. But I think with some justification, young men, particularly of 20, do go through life and they don't recognise the world that, for example, feminist campaigners describe. They do experience discrimination in education. They do feel as though schools can be architected against them sometimes. They get whacked on Ritalin for being too boisterous. When they get into the workplace and go and apply for jobs and all the rest of it, you know, they don't have all the same sort of programmes and foundations and extra schemes and all the rest of it. Yes, it would be ridiculous to have made this argument even perhaps half a decade ago, but I don't think it is anymore.
Right, but your main claim is about the gender pay gap, that actually that is a myth. And it's not a myth, is it?
Yes, it is
today,
a myth, yes.
Well, it's not a myth according to the figures from the ONS, the Office for National Statistics, because even in November last year, they showed that the gender pay gap for all employees, full-time and part-time, still benefits men by 19.1%. That's their figures.
Yes, well,
for full-time employment, just one moment, it was 9.4% less, and that's in April this year. Now, there is a narrow figure that they use too, which shows that hourly earnings in April 2014, with women working for more than 30 hours a week, were actually paid 1.1% more. But that's right. It's just that bracket. And actually, when you get men and women workers in their 40s, 50s or 60s, again, the gender pay gap is in favour of men. So it's a myth.
Well, you're right about all of that stuff, but you're wrong about why it's happening.
Well, hang on a second, though, because you made the claim in your piece, in your film, that women are not paid, or rather men are not paid more than women, and they are.
Well, you have to understand where the figures come from, right? These figures...
you must understand.
These figures are... You're going to accuse me of mansplaining, aren't you?
No,
these figures come from averages across society. They don't take into account the different life choices that women make. The reality is that women do prefer a more balanced life. When they go to work, even if they don't have babies, they take longer holidays. They tend to take more holidays. And the reason that you know, they are paid more, up to about 30, 35, 39, depending on whose figures you believe. The reason that flips
only
at the
between
end,
30 and 39.
No, that's actually not true. The reason that the figures flip after that age is because women make different life choices.
Right.
And if you take those life choices into account, no serious economist believes this stuff. It's repeated by politicians right up to President Obama, but no serious economist takes the wage gap seriously.
Caroline.
Well, I think some of those life choices aren't just a woman's life choice, it's a family life choice, and part of that is determined by who's the higher income earner. So when you get to the point, I mean, look, I had my kids in my 20s, but more people are having them in their 30s and later. You make a decision as a family about who's got the earning power. Now, in a lot of families, the male partner in those relationships, if it's a male-female relationship, is often earning more. So the life choice they're making is based on who's bringing more in. But this goes back to the fact that I believe that we still have a huge amount of job segregation when it comes to gender.
So
hang on.
You're making an assumption.
No, can I finish my point?
You're making an assumption this
is
based on some sort of...
No, I hadn't finished what I was going to say. I think a lot of jobs that are high-income jobs, engineers, for example, we have hardly any women and girls in that area, and we need to have that in there. Often in school, the choices that are put in front of girls are for the less-paid jobs and professions. If you look at the number of women... If you look at the number of women who work in health and social care compared to men, it is much higher, and there's often a low value and a pay value.
Should we be advertising those to men?
So what I think is the way to address this,
some professions are over.
I think the way to address this is about tackling the way in which boys and girls are encouraged to go in certain jobs. I would actually say that actually one of our problems in our schools is what we're seeing is actually working class kids less likely to end up in the higher paying professions. That worries me an awful lot, and that's where I do think working class boys are often losing out. But there is also,
not really a class issue.
It's the payover.
You're making an assumption.
Part of the class issue that you don't get into the jobs that pay the highest paid wages.
Well, let Milo come out. So, I mean, Milo, one of the things you do mention, which is talked about a lot, is that girls are outperforming boys at school.
Right.
More of them are going to university. Employers prefer prefer them. This is anecdotal,
Yes.
I have to say. You know,
No,
they're
it's
more
not
driven.
anecdotal.
Well,
Actually,
no,
there are studies
but
now.
even if they
3 weeks
are,
ago, a study came out
Yeah.
that showed that men and women going for the same job with the same qualification in STEM fields,
why aren't they at the top of the
women are
Right.
3 to 1 more likely to get the job because it's a generational thing. You know, it's happening very, very recently. In the last 5 years, a lot of stuff has happened very, very fast.
Right, George, what do you think? Do you think at the moment that there is beginning to be a turnaround, that actually, despite the pay issue, which we can agree to disagree on, that actually men are still paid more than women for the same or very similar jobs in a lot of cases?
It's
Milo,
just not
according
true.
to the statistic.
It
Well,
is a
they are.
feminist myth that
But
will not
are
die.
men
It
now
simply
feeling
isn't
the
true.
pressure of the success of women?
No, I think, though, where you make an interesting point is that there is an improvement, there's a convergence. I think if you look at younger people, you're probably right, that actually there's a difference between people in their 20s and 30s than those who are a bit older. But I think part of that's not to say there's not a problem. There's still a big problem. We've still only got around 20% of
At the
FTSE
top.
100
At the
companies
very top.
that have got women.
Again, this is based on faulty assumptions. I'm sorry to
No.
interrupt. It's on
Well, let me just
faulty
finish. It's
assumptions.
not a faulty, because actually I think what we need to do better at is enabling women to resume a career after they've had a family and
Or men
continue
take
to
it.
climb up. Yes, I know, but
Yeah.
because one of the things I think, it's all very well to say, of course, they take a break out of their career to raise a family, but as a country we've got to get much better at enabling them to
Yeah.
resume a career and carry
whether
on.
women
and
have a family
not
or
to be
not.
overlooked.
I've got the edge of screaming, we must end it now. Sorry, we've run out of time. Thank you.
I'd come back on and talk about Greek debt next time. It's safer territory. And you've got the name for it as well.
As a conservative and cultural libertarian thought leader, for his unique ability to expose the most totalitarian factions of the identitarian social justice left that seek to suppress free speech and propagate falsehoods regarding issues related to science and culture. Beginning with his campaign against...
You've got a real problem. All right, I think we need a mic for you, right? Are you mic'd up? You're good? There we go. Alright, we've done this a couple times before. Usually there aren't barbarians at the gate, but this is fun. This is your producer. Yeah, first off. No, I'm kidding. She's lovely. She's here. She's wonderful. I just want to be clear. A lot of you guys have come up to me and said, "Those are your people out there, Dave." They are your people. No, those are not my people. Those are.
He said before, he said, "Oh, no, my people, reasonable people, the sensible people, they're not here." So what you're basically telling me is that the left is either fucking insane or doesn't give a shit. You're coming over to the Republicans when?
Listen, I want the left to wake up, and that's what I'm trying to do by being here with a racist, bigot, homophobic,
Misogynistic. What are the other ones? Shout them out. Welcome to my life.
Yeah.
It's not a show, this is how I live. For you, this is a treat. For you, this is like an evening out.
Yeah.
Sorry, you could have been at home with Netflix and lamb chops this evening. I'm giving you a lovely evening out. I have to live on this shit every day.
Well, then let's do this. Let's do it. All right. So, before we get into all the feminism and the free speech, college, the trigger warnings, and all that stuff, what do you make of this? Of what has happened here? Did you see the Indian outside?
Insane. What the Department of Justice statistics show is that perhaps 1 in 52 women are not raped but sexually assaulted, which is too many, but it is as Christina likes to say, world away from 1 in 3, 1 in 4, 1 in 5. It seems to go down. I think it's going to end up like 20 in 4 women by the time we finish this conversation. The left has a supply and demand problem, as Douglas Murray likes to say, with bigotry, so that's enlarged the definition. So rape can become sexual assault because, I can do this to you, and I put it in the statistics. And they have to take these non-representative tiny samples in adult education colleges where everyone's 40, and of course they've had more life experience and bad things have happened to them out in the real world. If they're in adult education college, their life has probably been pretty shit. So no worry, no wonder that, there's a high incidence of these things. You have to do so much massaging and horse shit to get to these numbers, like 1, 3, 4, 5. It's the most intellectually dishonest statistic in America today. It is shameful. The protester that we had here, and the gender studies, departments at universities should feel ashamed of themselves for lying to women. They should be ashamed of themselves for making women worry to go out on campuses, which are the safest places to be if you are a young woman. If they weren't, people wouldn't come to them. And partisan point, if you want one, these are places that have been run by liberals for 30 years. And now liberals are telling us that places run by liberals are hotbeds of racism, sexism and rape. Maybe a sign for Republicans in charge.
So Tim Hunt said the problem with girls is that you fall in love with them and they cry when you criticise them. He admitted being a chauvinist pig, but does that excuse his comments? Well, with us is columnist and broadcaster Milo Yiannopoulos, as you can see, and also Dr. Emily Grossman, who is a maths and science teacher and tutor. Who'd like to start, Doctor?
I think the issue here is that his comments are irresponsible in an environment where there is such a strong gender imbalance still in the sciences. I work as a teacher and tutor, and I am really passionate about encouraging young women, girls at school to study science, to go into sciences, and there's still an environment where a lot of young girls still feel that science isn't for them. There's a historical reason for that. Back in the Renaissance time, women were told that their brains were too soft to house a powerful skull, that exercising our brains would shrink our ovaries. We're still coming back from that, and we're in an environment where we're desperately trying to dispel these stereotypes, to dispel the image that science and maths is more for boys than it is for girls. And these types of comments, potentially harmless in terms of intent, are actually really reinforcing these stereotypes that we're trying to get away from in terms of encouraging girls to go into science as a career.
Well, you hear this a lot from scientists, you hear a lot in particular from female scientists, but the fact is that there is some reason to suppose that there is an advantage to being a man in certain subjects. There's reason to suppose that gender essentialism, biological determinism, whatever you want to call it, the fact that there are male brains and female brains, may indeed have some basis in science. Now, this is sort of thrown out of the window completely by feminists and female academics who just refuse to accept that there's any reason whatsoever why there might be a gender imbalance. Two things on that. One, actually the science is very much still out on that. And two, if you look at equality in society, if you look, for example, at Bangladesh versus Norway, what you notice is the number of women in science and technology subjects actually goes down as societies get more equal, because women simply don't make the same choices that female academics and feminists would like them to. Women actually don't want to go into the sciences on the whole, and when they have every option available to them, they tend to choose not to.
I don't think that's the issue. I think it's about confidence. I think women suffer. Again, we're not talking about all women, we're talking about some women, we're talking about some men, from lack of confidence and from something called imposter syndrome, where we attribute our successes to external factors and we lack the confidence to actually believe that we are good enough to do it.
Sorry to interrupt you, but if you're going to get put off a career in science because of an offhand comment from a Nobel Prize winner, how committed were you really in the first place to being a scientist? I mean,
women learn in a very different way. Women learn, again, not all women, but majority of women learn in a way that's supportive, that's nurturing, that's encouraging. I see that in the students that I teach. I see the girls that I teach go into mixed-sex sixth forms and get totally put off because they're in a sink-or-swim environment, they're in a competitive environment, they're too frightened to put up their hands and ask
questions. So we shouldn't have competitiveness in science. Competitiveness in science is bad. We should segregate the sexes, really. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Absolutely not.
Much better, in fact, if what Tim Hunt said was exactly true. What you're saying is that gender segregation would be a good thing. You're saying mixed classes, the competitiveness is bad for women. So maybe he's right. Maybe we should separate labs out into female scientists and male scientists. That seems to be what you're saying.
It's important for women to be able to compete in a male environment, but it's important to help those women, to support those women in terms of confidence and in terms of self-belief, because women are more naturally self-reflected. Again, not all women, a lot of men are like this too.
It's sort of a weird sexist position to take, isn't it? So women can't really take it, so we need to be extra specially careful around them.
Is it different for gay men and lesbian women?
Well, it's brilliant being a gay man because you can get away with murder. You can do anything. I mean, there's the one respect in which identity politics is brilliant. You know, as a gay man or a lesbian, you can basically get away with murder. You can be bitchy, you can be sarcastic, you can be rude and abusive, and you can do whatever the hell you like, and nobody complains. Women, I think, really, you know, until very recently, until possibly the last half-decade, it was certainly true that women had all kinds of structural disadvantages in society. That simply isn't true anymore. It's not true, for example, when women go for jobs in science, technology and mathematics. You know, a study came out, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago in the US saying that women have a 2-to-1 advantage over men with the same qualifications because everyone's so desperate to hire women. The reality that people experience, you know, going for jobs and in the working life is actually that women are sort of structurally advanced advantaged, not disadvantaged.
A
And that's
study
happened
came out
very recently.
also to show that out of 65 countries, the UK has the highest discrepancy between confidence amongst boys and girls in terms of how good they feel that they are. Girls are coming out of school and not going into those careers because they feel they're not good enough, they feel they're not welcomed into
women
those
are
careers.
in,
And
women
actually
in the majority at
those very
university.
skills, those very qualities that, yes, women do cry, some women cry. I have cried when I've felt out of my comfort zone, when I have felt afraid, but actually that didn't make me any less good. I cried when I came out of all my exams at Cambridge, and I did better than the boys. And actually women cry because they're sensitive. Again, not all women, some women, lots of men too, because they're sensitive, because they're self-reflective, because they're empathic, because they're passionate, and they're willing to take on criticism, they're willing to look at themselves. Excuse me?
So Tim Hunt's right.
He's right that women cry, but the implication that that makes us at a disadvantage...
To make a final point, and then I'll come to you.
Of all A-level physics students, only 20% are girls. How can you possibly say that we're in an equal environment where girls are coming out and studying science as much as boys are? We are absolutely not, and we need to make sure that girls feel that science is for them, and it's not just for boys, and they're not being pushed out of it because of who they are, and because they might cry, and because they might be self-reflective.
But this is based on an assumption that there ought to be some kind of gender parity. My suggestion is that there isn't. We don't complain when women dominate subjects like nursing. We shouldn't complain when men dominate subjects like physics.